Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this briefing. I'm Talia Deal Fleig, CEO of the Jerusalem Press Club. Today, we're here discussing the deal that Israel and Hamas has reached through Qatari mediation that includes the release of 50 Israelis kidnapped by the terror organization during its onslaught on Israel's south on October 7th. The agreement will see to the release of mainly children and women in exchange for a 4-day ceasefire, more fuel, and 150 underage Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails. This deal, which is being fiercely debated, will allow some people to reunite with their loved ones on the one hand, but may signal an end to Israel's fight against Hamas on the other if it loses international support once the quiet is achieved. To speak about these developments, we host Major General in Reserves, Yaakov Amidror, former National Security Advisor, former head of the Research Department in the IDF's Military Intelligence Directorate, former head of the National Defense College, and former military secretary for the Defense Minister. Today, General Amidror is a senior fellow at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategic Studies, for Strategy and Security, and at the JINSA Strategic Center in Washington, D.C. Hello, General Amidror. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi. Good noon.
Good noon, right.
It's exactly 12 o'clock, yes. The deal, which was organized by United States of America and Qatar with help from the Egyptians, these are the three countries which took part in the efforts to reach the deal, is probably will be implemented tomorrow, when the IDF is in a strong momentum at the north part of the Gaza Strip. The two forces which combined with each other in the seashore of the Gaza Strip, west of the Gaza city, are now moving eastward towards the border with Israel, at the center of the Gaza street of the Gaza city area. There are two strong points that they have to take. Both of them have been encircled by the IDF. On the ground, underground, still we have to deal with the tunnels, and it is, I don't know, it will take a week or less to reach the border of Israel in the east, and that will be the end of the intensive operation in the north part of the Gaza Strip. The north part of the Gaza Strip will be militarily controlled by the IDF. IDF will have to continue to expose the tunnels, to clean the area, to kill more Hamas members, and to destroy the command and control system and factories in which they produce weapon system and so on and so forth. But military, the intensive war in the north part of Gaza probably will be end within 10 days. And then the decision should be taken about the south part of the Gaza Strip. Where should we go? The Prime Minister said it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And I agree with him that should be done. Now, the deal is putting a pause on all the efforts on the ground. It will be at least 4 days pause. And if they bring back more hostages for every 10, they will get another day of a ceasefire, during which there are 6 hours between 10 and 16 that we don't fly with the unmanned aeroplanes above the Gaza Strip. The argument here is what will happen the day after. Unlike many Israelis, I believe that it is very clear to the decision makers that they cannot stop. The Israeli sentiment will not let them stop. If they stop the war after the 4, 5, 6 days of the ceasefire, that will be the end of this government. Because the sentiment within the military forces and the Israeli public is so strong to destroy Hamas that cannot be stopped. And of course, it will be the biggest test of this cabinet the minute that the ceasefire will be ended formally. That will be agreed based on what Hamas can give back. The more they will give, the longer the ceasefire period will be. As I said, from my private, personal point of view, that is the deal that Israel should agree to. I think that here we have a chance to save the life of 50 people, children, babies, women, elderly. We should take it. It's a blackmail, I know. It means that we are giving them more time to be better prepared for the next stage of the war. I understand it. Unlike many people, I don't think that there is any benefit for Hamas to have more oil or more gas or what I don't know what food and water and so on. That will not change the balance of power between the IDF and the Hamas. With all due respect to the humanitarian help, it is more for the civilians. Hamas will take whatever it can, no question. People will not fight when they don't have food and water and they don't care about the civilians. I know it, but that will not change the balance of power between the IDF and the Hamas. And Hamas, it's not, an open space in which they can bring more forces from somewhere. No, it's a closed area within the Gaza Strip. That's what they have. They can move some of them to the south, some of them to the north, in the tunnels maybe, if they still can. My assessment that it is more people will run out of the area in the north into the south, and it will make the second phase of the fighting in the north easier for the IDF, not more problematic. Yes, they can be better prepared in the south based on the ceasefire, and in the next stage that I don't know when we will begin, immediately after the ceasefire, a few days later, the preparation by the Air Force and the artillery should be much stronger, because we understand that they can build their capabilities in a better way because of the ceasefire. So I don't see a big losses to Israel during the ceasefire. Either it is the ability of Hamas to reorganize, or the momentum which was stopped in the Israeli side, and I really don't care about the humanitarian help which will come in. Yes, it will help Hamas, but that will not change the balance of power. So I think that from all these purposes and the ability to bring back 50 people, alive, children, babies, something that we should be blackmailed by the Hamas, and in a way, as a society, should be proud that we were ready to be blackmailed by the Hamas because of that. And any question that you have, I'll be more than happy to answer. Please identify yourself.
Okay, just a follow-up question before we open the floor. You've made it clear what the advantages are, but is Israel capable of picking up where it left off essentially immediately after the ceasefire? Not operationally, I think you've made clear that we are, but at least in terms of international credibility, what the world wants to see is quiet. Is that something that Israel will be able to do? Will it be able to?
With all due respect to the world, we should continue to destroy Hamas. Look, the Americans, the Brits, the French, and the NATO members went 1,000 kilometers to destroy Al-Qaeda after what they did in 9/11. What Hamas did to us was the 9/11. And Hamas, unlike Al-Qaeda, didn't expose itself. All its war was done behind the human shield of the Gaza, of the civilians in Gaza. So even from the point of view of the people in Gaza, Hamas is even worse than Al-Qaeda. We are going to destroy Hamas not 1,500 miles away from Washington or New York. We are going to do it 15 kilometers from the place in which they butchered civilians, women, raped them, killed them, took babies and killed them with their family. They entered to an apartment, they saw the grandmother, the mother, and the two granddaughters, and they killed them all. So here, it's not a question, with all due respect to the international community. I think that many people in the international community understand Israel, backing Israel, and support Israel act to destroy Hamas. Those who don't, with all due respect, will not be taken into consideration when the decision will be made. Will be made after the ceasefire. I think that we should prepare everything that it will be automatically. No decision should be taken. The ceasefire is ended at 12 o'clock, 12 and 1 minute. We are back in the business.
Okay, thank you. We have quite a few questions coming in. I'm not going to read them in a thematic way, just so that we can go through them. So I apologize if it's a little bit messy. I'll remind those on the line to send them into the Q&A section if possible. We have one question from Foreign Policy Magazine asking about what other intelligence gathering capabilities does Israel have in addition to drones, if you're able to answer that question.
Yes, of course. First of all, we have the ability to take all the photos from above, by F-15 and others. We have satellites that can make it day and night. It's not the same resolution as the drones, but the ability to identify movements on the ground is there, and we probably will use it. We can photo part of it, not all of it, from our side. It's not from above, it's from our side it can be done. So we will lose some intelligence, but a lot of the intelligence can be kept and continue to monitor.
Okay, we have a question from KRM News, a Korean news agency, asking about whether the ceasefire would apply to other areas, West Bank, Hezbollah, Yemen. I'm sure that opens up a whole slew of information that you can give us, but not about this.
In the West Bank, it does not apply. We will continue to arrest based on every piece of intelligence that we will have to go after potential terrorists in the West Bank. We did it in the last during the whole operation. Almost 2,000 had been arrested and 200 had been killed during the operation in the West Bank, and we will continue. We cannot allow ourselves, the cells of Hamas, to reorganize themselves in the West Bank. This is terrorism which might hurt in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, or Netanya every day and morning. That chance that we will not take. In the north with Hezbollah, it is not us who are initiating the skirmishes in the north. It's Hezbollah. If Hezbollah stops, we stop probably. The Houthis is a good question. I don't know how far the hands of Iran will be ready to give the Houthis the order to stop. I don't know. We don't take it into account. The readiness to intercept the threats coming from Yemen is there and will be operational the whole time. But I don't know what orders Iran will give the Houthis. And Hezbollah, it's very interesting to look at it, to see how far Nasrallah want to identify himself with Hamas, including the ceasefire.
Okay, one journalist from a French magazine, a weekly French magazine, is asking whether, because the agreement was signed with Hamas, what will be the fate of those who are being held by other factions and clans, such as Islamic Jihad or otherwise?
From our point of view, the responsibility in the Gaza Strip is with Hamas. It's Hamas' responsibility to identify the others and to bring them. Hamas probably will use excuses that he can't and so on and so forth. And this is why we said that extension of the ceasefire is only if you bring 10. I mean, there is a quota, and if they stand with the quota, we will stand with the ceasefire.
Okay, David Brannon from Newsweek magazine is saying, you mentioned that people fleeing in the north will make the operational situation there for the IDF somewhat simpler. But is this mass movement setting up a more dangerous situation in the south for the IDF's next phase, particularly if Hamas do need to reinforce and prepare the area during the ceasefire?
Yes, this is the risk that we are taking. And we are ready to take it because at the end of the day, when we have to prioritize more risk for civilians or more risk for uniform guys, we are taking the risk in the military side and not with the civilian side. So yes, here the IDF is taking a risk for releasing the hostages.
Okay, thank you. A question from CNN International to a follow-up to an interview they had done on Christian Amanpour's show with Ehud Barak, who told her that Israel has built bunkers under the hospital in Gaza, under the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. Can you tell us a little bit more about that statement and to what extent Israel can use these former plans to identify further tunnels and bunkers in Gaza, if that's possible?
Unlike other hospitals in Gaza, like the Indonesian one, which was built after we unilaterally retreat from Gaza, Shifa was built when Israel was in Gaza. And Israeli architects helped the Palestinians, as we help them to in every area, to try to help them to build a better life, to build this hospital. And the Israelis come with an idea to build more basements that will help the hospital to have more space for more patients if will be needed in the future. Of course, the fact that that was used by Hamas which took the basements and built the tunnels into it and out of it as part of its system of command and control was never expected by the architects, the Israeli architects, who helped them to build a health system which was kidnapped by Hamas, which made it a command and control system. So I understand people are making many noises with this revelation of Ehud Barak, but it is only another piece in the picture which is showing that even when we in Israel had all the goodwill to help the Palestinians by extending the place and the space for patients in Shifa, what was done after we left the area by Hamas is to kidnap this space and to make it command and control, part of its command and control system. So that's what I have to do, and we're exposing it. Yes, we have, in this case, we have some better information about the previous situation under the hospital, but because the changes which had been done by Hamas, which transferred it from a space for patients to space for command and control system, it helps, but not too much, because we have to expose the tunnels, the entrances to the tunnels, and so on and so forth. So it was a good beginning, but it's not solving the intelligence challenge under Shifa Hospital.
Okay, thank you. A number of journalists are asking about the South, because everybody, you know, according to what you said at the beginning of the briefing, that we're going to have to move south eventually. So I'll try to summarize the questions. One of them is asking whether Kieran Monks from the I newspaper is asking whether the operation itself will look similar in the south as it did to the north, or will it be more targeted? I'm not sure what that means, but you can do with it what you will.
At the end of the day, it very much depends on the intelligence that we will have. and we are now acquiring a lot of intelligence from the Hamas people which surrendered to our forces, either in 7th of October or during the operation in the north. It very much depends on the ability to collect information from them and to understand what's going on in the south as much as they know. I don't know what they know about the south, but this is, the time that we use during the ceasefire will be very helpful to take all the information that was collected in the north and to try to understand how it can help us in the south. So for us, it's a very important days in which we can learn more about the situation in the south through what we found in the north. In some cases, probably it will not. And of course, they will not have any information about the reorganization of Hamas in the south that will be done during those days. But it might be very helpful. I think that at the end, when you go in with ground forces to an urban area, at the end, it will be mostly like in the north. Probably will be some differences. Gaza is not Deir el-Balah, and Sajaiya is not Khan Yunis, and there is no centers of gravity like Shifa area with the command and control system like they have in Gaza in many cases, in many places in the south. It's different, but at the end, it's almost the same.
Okay, a couple more follow-up questions about the considerations when doing an operation in the south. Paul Adams from the BBC, as well as Philipp Volkmann-Schlack from Die Welt, Germany, are both asking about what plans, what consideration the IDF would take with the amount of civilians that are going to be located in the south, given the fact that they were instructed to move this way, and how this might impact the development of the operation there.
We called the civilians in the north to move to the Muasi. And Israel will not attack the Muasi. This is a safe haven that Israel promised will not be attacked. Not airstrikes and not ground forces. Not by airstrikes and not by ground forces. We didn't ask anyone to move to Khan Yunis, Deir el-Balah, to Rafah or other places in between Gaza and the south. We told the people in Gaza to move to the Muasi. They know exactly what does it mean, and everyone who is living in Gaza understand the difference between Khan Yunis, Rafah, Deir el-Balah, Buwej, and the Muasi. And probably we ask and urge the population in those areas to which we are going with ground forces to move to the Muasi as well. So the Muasi will be very crowded, but we are not going, not by air and not by ground forces, to attack the Muasi. It's a safe haven which will be saved by Israel, and which was designated by Israel and will be a safe place for the Palestinians. We are not going to use not ground forces and not air power in this area.
Okay. Bettina Meyer from ARD, the German public broadcast, is asking whether you think that if this temporary ceasefire might end up a permanent armistice. You kind of answered it at the beginning, but she is also asking whether wait, sorry, the question just jumped. Maybe if you can address the first part of the question so far.
Okay, and I said again, we don't know what will happen in the future. But my assessment is that the time will be used by Israel to prepare the invasion of the south, to reorganize its forces. And the minute that the ceasefire will be ended, we will complete the mission in the north. It will take a few days. It's not going to be an easy journey. There's Zaytun and Sajaiya, both are hard places, very well prepared by the Hamas, and the Hamas will use the few days that they will have to even prepare it even for better, because we came from direction that they didn't expect it. We came from the west into the east, so they have to reorganize the system. It is not going to be an easy journey, but after it was encircled by our forces on the ground, it will be done within a few days. This operation will be finished, and I think that will be immediate reaction or immediate step after the ceasefire will be ended. The days will be used by us to prepare the invasion to the south, and when it will take place, I don't know. But the combination between the two is in the hands of the military guys, not the political decision makers. It's a military challenge and military question, and should be answered by the experts from the military. I believe that because of the sentiment in Israel, within the forces on the ground and within the civilians, no government in Israel can stop the operation.
Okay, a few questions now returning to the Israeli hostages and the non-Israeli hostages kidnapped from Israel. First question, if you can say, we know that the hostages in this agreement are supposed to be Israeli citizens. Do you think that pressure on in other governments, such as the German government, will bring to a similar deal over German citizens? And this is being asked also by the German broadcaster.
I think there are two kinds of foreign citizens in the group. One are those who do not have any Israeli citizenship. Workers from Nepal, from Thailand, and so on and so forth. Almost all the other dual citizens have Israeli citizenship as well. There are very few which don't. And we didn't separate or make any distinctions between the Israeli and non-Israeli citizens. What we said, we want in the first group all the children and the women relating to those children and elderly. So if there is anyone who is in this criteria and is not an Israeli citizen, of course he will be released. The people from Thailand and Nepal and so on and so forth, which worked in Israel but not citizens of Israel, I know that other governments are putting pressure on the Qatari side to help that they will be released, and we will be more than happy if they will. If Israel will enter to a phase in which we will negotiate about the releasing of all the hostages, for sure it will include the non-Israeli citizens. This is not a question. Morally, we cannot make any separation between them. Now, we didn't release anyone based on his citizenship. It was based on his gender, if you want. Babies, children, women connected to the children, and elderly or people with health problems. So if there is someone who is not an Israeli citizen which is answering those criteria, no question that he will be released. And as I said, when Israel will negotiate, if Israel will negotiate the release of all the hostages, for sure it will include everyone, including all the non-Israelis.
Right. There's also indication that one of the people who had given, one of the hostages who had given birth during their time there is in fact a foreign worker. So she could possibly be in that list. General, one journalist is asking about the future of Red Cross visits. Sorry, this journalist is from Japanese media. Do you know if the Red Cross will be able to reach the remaining hostages perhaps after this deal? Is this part of the deal?
First part of the war crimes which had been done by Hamas is not allowing the visit of the Red Cross with the hostages. I mean, this is against all the international laws and rules, and still Hamas, that is his attitude. We hope that will happen. And I know that medicines were transferred to those who need it, and it will supposed to be done by the Red Cross. What will happen with the Red Cross? I don't know. It's very, how to say it, disappointing organization.
A reporter from CNN International is asking if you're aware of any attempts by Israel to convince the Egyptian government to accept some Palestinians from southern Gaza into Sinai, if and when Israel begins its operation in the south. And do you believe that there are specific circumstances under which Egypt would accept this?
The Egyptians are very clear about it, and I think that it will be a huge mistake to put pressure on them relating to that. They have many reasons not to accept any Palestinian. First of all, they don't like them. And second, they're afraid from them because Hamas is a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the enemy of the regime in Cairo. And they don't want to be blamed that they are helping us by evacuating Palestinians from Gaza Strip. So all the reasons together, I think Israel should not try to convince the Egyptians. It is the policy of Egypt, and we should respect it.
Okay, continuing on the next phase, in terms of the south, are you concerned that Hamas fighters might move back up north once the invasion of the south is begun? And this is from Der Standard newspaper.
We should make all the arrangements to cut the south from the north, that no one will be in a position to move to the north during the invasion in the south. And the main challenge is to cut the underground tunnels. This is something that we should do. We control the area which is separating the north from the south. The left arm of the IDF invaded into the Gaza Strip in an area which is the buffer between the north and the south, and we should use this buffer to destroy the tunnels that can be identified. Those who can be identified, probably not all of them can be identified, but those who can be identified should be destroyed. So there is no any way to move from the south to the north, and at the end we will be within a week, as I said, in a situation in which we are controlling militarily the north. So it will be very challenging for Hamas to begin something there. They even can succeed to kill some of our soldiers, but at the end of the day, they cannot change the situation on the ground in which Israel is controlling the north part of the Gaza Strip.
Okay, you've already made clear the order in which Israel is asking for hostages to be released, and indicated that Israel wants all of the hostages released from this war. But do we know about where others who have been held in Gaza previously, such as Avera Mengistu and Hisham al-Said, as well as the bodies of Hadar Golden and Oron Shaul, where do they come into this equation? A question posed by Aaron Porce of the Media Line.
I don't know what we know. It's intelligence that I'm not involved in. And we said formally that in any negotiations about releasing all the hostages, those people will be part of the list that Israel will put on the table. So it will be part of the negotiation in the future about the releasing of the other part of the hostages.
Okay, one question, unfortunately it's anonymous, but I think it's a good question that needs to be asked. What the deal itself, what indication does it give to our Arab partners in the moderate Sunni world? Is this the kind of thing that is expected to give into this blackmail, as you called it, from Hamas?
I think that those who are negotiating with us and have relations with us on the table or under the table, they learn to know that we are a different society. That in the only democracy from the Atlantic to India, the only non-Arab, non-Muslim country from the Atlantic to India, the only open society from the Atlantic to India, the culture is different. And part of the culture, unlike in many countries in the Middle East, is we are taking care for our civilians. and we are ready to be blackmailed when it is needed. There are areas in which we are not ready to be blackmailed. For example, when we made the invasion of Gaza, in spite of the fact that theoretically we could say, okay, we are not invading in Gaza if you give us all the hostages. No, we invaded Gaza and we are destroying Hamas. We are in a process of destroying Hamas in the north part of Gaza. And if the cabinet will implement what it was promised to the Israeli people, we will destroy Hamas in the south as well. It will take time, but we will do it, in spite of the fact that we have hostages in the hands of Hamas. But there are some situations in which you have to be ready to be blackmailed if there are other values which are as important. For example, in this case, life of children, women, and elderly. Yes, we are ready to be blackmailed if this is on what we have to take into account.
Very
and
clear.
You have to weigh your values. The world in which there is organization like Hamas is not a very good place to live. But these are the circumstances. And I believe that at the end of the day, we will destroy Hamas.
We've taken up a lot of your time, but there are still quite a few questions, so we're going to...
No problem.
Okay.
I'm here to answer.
Thank you. There's a lot of interest in this topic, naturally. One journalist from KRM News is asking whether Palestinians who will be released as part of the deal and whose homes are in the West Bank, if Israel will be rearresting them once they're returned home.
No, if they will not take part in any terror attempt or a cell, or they will not make any harm to the Israeli law. No, we don't fight. Again, Israel is a democracy. You cannot cheat all the time. If it's needed, you can cheat if it helps. But in this case, those who will be released will sign that they are not going back into to be terrorists. And if they don't, they will not be arrested.
Very clear. The BBC is...
They will be monitored by our intelligence system and so on and so forth, but no one will touch them if they're not becoming terrorists.
Okay, very clear. The BBC is asking a follow-up question on Al-Mawasi, where you said that the civilians have been told to evacuate, saying that there's no infrastructure there capable of accommodating 2 million people, including hospitals and other essential services. Is it reasonable to expect that the entire civilian population can go there, especially with the winter coming and the potentially disastrous consequences for mass amounts of people in one place?
The life of the people in Gaza will be miserable, no question. And they have to ask Hamas why they did it. And we don't have an answer. We are now busy with one big target, to destroy Hamas. And we will do it, whatever will be needed for that. And if supporters of Hamas and those who didn't support Hamas, we cannot identify who was a supporter of Hamas and who was not a supporter of Hamas, and how many of the people in the Mawasi are members of Hamas. You don't know, we don't know. Yes, there is a price for destroying such an organization. There is a price. Part of the price we are paying. We have people which killed in the war, and part of the price is paid by Hamas, by civilians of the Gaza Strip. No question. It cannot be hide. It is not going to be easy for them. And by the way, it's not going to be easy for us as well. We are losing soldiers every day and every night in the attempt to kill and to destroy Hamas. And we are ready to take the price. And we don't know any other way to do it, but the way that it is done. And yes, we know that, and we are very sorry about it. People in Israel don't like the situation that people in Gaza are somewhere in the Mawasi under the rain of the winter, which is coming in those days. But what is the alternative? All the time you have to ask yourself, okay, what is the alternative? And the alternative is not to destroy Hamas, which the alternative that we cannot take into our mind and decision making. Hamas will be destroyed, and if the price is Israeli soldiers will be killed and civilians in Gaza will suffer, we are very sorry about both, but that will happen. And by the way, if someone has an idea how to destroy Hamas without it, please tell us.
We'll be waiting for a while. One journalist from Foreign Policy is asking specifically about Hamas. First, if we know how many fighters are in each battalion, and second, who you think at the end of the day is calling the shots. Is it Hamas's leaders in Doha, commanders in the field, other countries that might be involved?
The number of every battalion is good few hundreds. Depends on the battalion, but it's good few hundreds. And I think that in the level of the medium ranks, commander of battalions and companies, the success of the IDF is huge. We killed many of them, and that also make many problems to Hamas when it is coming to fight against Israel on the ground without the battalion, many of the battalion commanders and many of the company commanders. Who is calling the shot? It's a very good question. I think that basic policies decision is taken by the guys in the five-star hotels. Either it is in most of them in Qatar, but I think that Aouri from Istanbul and Beirut is moving between the two places, is also part of the decision making. But all the decisions of what will happen on the ground in the Gaza Strip is between Sinwar and Def. And these are the real leaders of the operation on the ground, not the main political decisions. They are very strong. They have the authority based on their experience and their character, and they are making the main decisions on the ground. And I don't think that in this stage any country is involved, but both the Qataris, which gave the oxygen to the organization for many years, and still supporting the Hamas through Al Jazeera, you can see it in Al Jazeera, and the Egyptians who are controlling the ability of people from Gaza to move out and in. I think that both countries have influence on the decision making of Hamas, and you could see it in these negotiations about the release of the hostages, which was done mainly in Qatar, but with help from the Egyptians. I think that at the end, decisions about operations in the Gaza Strip are done by the commanders on the ground, mainly Sinwar and Def.
Okay, just a few final questions before we wrap up. The journalist from the French magazine is asking whether Jordan bears any responsibility towards the population in Gaza, and I will ask a follow-up question whether there's any pressure back home from the Palestinian citizens of Jordan to accommodate them in any way.
This is the biggest fear of King Abdullah. Another million Palestinians in Jordan, and it is the end of Jordan. You know, all the experts are arguing if the Palestinians in Jordan are 60% or 75%, but it's somewhere in those numbers. And if there's something that the real Jordanians, as they call themselves, the indigenous of Jordan, not the Palestinians, don't want, including the Hashemite family, despite the fact that his wife is a Palestinian. They don't want more Palestinians in Jordan, and look at it as a threat to the existence of the Hashemite kingdom control of Jordan in the future. So I don't think that anyone will be accepted in Jordan.
Very clear. The journalist from ARD in Germany is asking whether you have any concern about what might happen with the Palestinian prisoners in Israel's jails, not necessarily the ones that are going, not the ones that are going to be released. What's that going to look like for the prison service, etc.?
I don't see it changing the deal will not change the circumstances in the Israeli prisoner system. And as you know, the decision here is to limit their conditions and not let them, as in the past, to live in 5-star hotels in the prison, but only 2 stars, to reduce the level of good life that they have in the prison. And that will continue probably.
Okay, just one last question, and unfortunately it has also disappeared from my screen, but one journalist was asking about the north again, and what would Israel's red line be if the attacks on it continue, even if it's, you know, here and there, before entering a larger scale operation like it did in Gaza?
I don't think that we should change the red line in the north because of the ceasefire in the south. In the north, it's another calculation. We decided at the first days of the war that we are not opening a second front in Lebanon. Nasrallah and Khamenei, by the way, if I understand well what he said a few 2 weeks ago, decided that they are not going to fight to save Hamas. It's not the purposes of the, it's not for that the Iranians built Hezbollah in Lebanon, not to save Hamas in they are ready, the Iranians are ready to sacrifice Hezbollah because they are not Iranians, they are Arabs. The Hezbollah is ready to sacrifice Hamas because they are not Shiites, they are Sunnis. And Hamas is ready to sacrifice the people of Gaza because they are not members of Hamas. So at the end, all the burden of the readiness to sacrifice in the other side is on the shoulders of the civilians in Gaza, those who are not members of Hamas. So I don't think that we should change the calculation relating to the north. In the north, it is their interest and our interest not to go to a big war. When our interest will be changed, when decision will be taken, and it might be taken every day that we are strong enough in the south so we can begin a war in the north, it might happen. They might think that this is an opportunity for them, I don't know. So we have to be ready, as we are now, to any change in the circumstances on the ground. But I don't think that we should change our calculation because of the ceasefire in the south relating to what we want to achieve and not to prevent, and what we want to prevent in the north.
Okay, I will add just one last question, and the fact that there are more coming in, and we will do our best to accommodate a connection to General Amidror afterwards, but we will leave it with the last question, which is on many people's minds. This is coming from La Repubblica in Italy. Is when do you think we'll actually start seeing the hostages coming out? I know that there's now the Supreme Court in Israel is waiting for petitions over the deal. Do you have any indication when we're going to start seeing it executed?
The minute that they will have the ability to bring the hostages, we will have to begin the ceasefire. And we're speaking about tomorrow. So theoretically, tomorrow we will see the beginning of the ceasefire, probably in the morning somewhere. And the first quota of the hostages. And tomorrow is the first test, but it will take 4 days to release all the 50. And then if they say, okay, we have another 10, they will get another day. But tomorrow is the first day.
So theoretically, if they keep releasing, the ceasefire continues.
Yes, if they continue the ceasefire is for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Theoretically, if they come Sunday and say we have another 10, it will be a Monday as well. The longer the ceasefire means the more hostages will come back home.
And does Hamas have an interest to continue that, or
Yes, Hamas, it very much depends on the ability of Hamas to organize the groups and to collect them from all over the Gaza Strip, where they hide them. And they have an interest to stop the ceasefire, because as many from the question I understand that people believe that the longer the ceasefire, the more complicated it will be to resume the war afterwards, which I think it's not correct, but maybe they're right. So this is their interest, to make it longer, because it will give them time to reorganize, and it will make the life of Israel much more complicated to go back to the war after, I don't know, 10 days of, but I think 10 days means that they add at least 60 to the first 50. So they have to release 110 people to get 10 days of ceasefire. And from my point of view, it's huge benefit for us if there are less 110 people in the hands of Hamas, and then we will resume the operation. It's a much better situation than today.
Very clear. Major General in Reserves Yaakov Amidror, former National Security Council advisor, today senior fellow at GINSA in Washington and at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security. Thank you so much for your time.
You're most welcome.
And everybody, tonight, just a reminder that we will be holding a webinar with previous National Security Advisor, Dr. Eyal Hulata, at 8 o'clock Israel time.
And he's a very smart guy.
And you're both very smart guys. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.